appears as though the OG iDubbbz fans have won a small victory over the hearts and minds of Anisa and Ian. On the most recent episode of She Ruined My Career, Anisa and her handler are seemingly trying to reach out to their lost and disgruntled fan base.
I don't think that you think that people are bad people for enjoying a YouTube video if their intentions are...
No, I think, to be honest, it's just like, in my mind, it's just like really bad communication on my part.
This comes after weeks of controversy surrounding the two, which I haven't had the opportunity to cover until now. Starting with Anisa's unhinged rant about the commentary community, stating that commentary YouTubers have never had a real job, and if confronted by Anisa, they would all break down in tears, crying like little bitches.
I don't know. I know a lot of them have never worked a real job. I know that for a fact. And if you have, you worked there for a week and you cried and you quit. You fuckers that are looking at this right now, I know that you would fucking cry if I said something to you in real life. I know you would cry. How do I know? Because I've...
Mission Control, we have a belligerent dumbass here that won't cooperate.
This rant reminds me of Melina, Destiny's wife. She said in a pretty famous clip that she would confront home invaders with her husband because wouldn't that be cooler?
I don't want to feel like some pathetic loser laying in bed while my husband wakes up to like go fight someone. I'll go fight with him. We'll be the team together. Doesn't that sound a lot cooler?
I don't know what it is about these scrawny 5-foot-tall women thinking they can take on fully grown men. Ladies, this isn't a Marvel movie. It's not about what's cool and what's not. There is nothing cool about your child growing up motherless because you just really wanted to prove it to the patriarchy. Unlike most of my colleagues in the commentary community, I actually believe Anisa when she says she was playing this up for her audience. Though, at the same time, I do believe that she actually believes everything she was saying, so if the intended purpose was for it to get clipped, as she stated...
I did that intentionally to be like ranty and interesting and eye-catching and like I did it with the intention of like getting it shared.
She still sounds like a moron. Sorry, Anisa, working at a Dairy Queen, a pet store, and a serving job is not exactly impressive when trying to describe yourself as a functioning member of society.
That's the other thing that a lot of these people assume is that I never worked a real job. I didn't get on the internet until I was 21. I had to pay for my own I was in college working like a fucking serving job. Okay? I was doing both. I had 4 to 5 classes a semester, and then I would go work a serving job, okay? And before that, I worked at a pet store and a Dairy Queen because I function in society.
And also, having multiple jobs back to back like that only says about yourself what you were trying to project on everyone else. You are the one who is incapable of maintaining a job. And one thing I find interesting about this stream is that it's Anisa's first stream in like 3 years, and now all of a sudden she's trying to regain a name for herself outside of just being known as iDubbbz's wife.
I love doing this. I love talking. I love riffing. I love entertaining. I loved who I was career-wise before I stepped foot into the iDubbbz community. I loved that. I was so happy in that aspect of my life, in my career. And I gave it up because I thought at the time that that was the right thing to do. The people who say like I used Ian or I'm only relevant because of Ian or whatever, like I'm the least relevant I've ever been in my life. And I have been the least relevant I've ever been in my career being attached to Ian. I was a lot more relevant and a lot more like popular pre-dating Ian.
I wonder if this is a sign of dissatisfaction in their relationship. Maybe I'm looking too deep into this, and forgive me if you think so, but hear me out for a second. The days following this stream, she uploaded a selfie with the caption, "Mommy, Mother, Matriarch," which ironically is 3 things that she is definitely not.
Some of my favorite retweets that I get on Twitter are people who literally retweet my shit and they're like, childless. And I'm like, yes, I try really hard at that, actually. Thank you for noticing. Thank you for noticing that I've managed to protect my womb from a parasite for the past 30 years.
The one word that sticks out to me the most, though, is matriarch. A matriarch is essentially a woman who wears the pants in the relationship. She is basically the breadwinner and is revered as the authority figure in the family. I mean, is this really how she thinks of herself? I mean, I've never been an Anisa fan, but holy hell, lady, stay in your lane. This kind of attitude is generally why most people don't like Anisa. For a little thought experiment, let's compare her to Marzia, PewDiePie's wife. All of PewDiePie's fans adore Marzia. Why? Even though she created an audience and a brand outside of the PewDiePie brand? Well, it's pretty obvious. She wasn't ashamed of living in the shadow of her more popular husband. And I think more importantly, she never became publicly domineering over Felix the way Anisa does to iDubbbz.
Like coughing in the morning, and I filmed it because I thought we were going to do a documentary, so I like filmed him coughing in the shower. All night he was coughing. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be so bad. He also had fractured shins, but like, you can fight on fractured shins, but you couldn't be as bouncy. But we found that out.
People are going to be saying excuses
I know.
for the fight from a year ago.
Yeah, from a year ago.
Let me just add, he still would have lost to Dr. Mike even if he could breathe and didn't have fractured shins.
If Marzia had this much of an ego, everyone would have hated her too. But the difference is, she understood, consciously or not, that more people just loved PewDiePie, and she was okay with that. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that she started to adore Felix more because of it. And given Anisa's next post, it just shows that she is incapable of thinking this way. When being referred to as Yoko Ono, she wrote, "Yoko Ono is a smart and talented woman who overcame the aftermath of World War II in Japan and went on to create iconic performance art pre-John Lennon. She was hated for not fitting into the expected norm for a famous man's wife. It's not an insult to compare me to her. It's actually my favorite insult that I receive. It only makes me sad because it's unfair to her. She is an extremely brave and strong woman who is reduced to her relationship. I will always give her her flowers." And then to make matters worse, in the comments someone wrote, "I don't know if screaming into a microphone is iconic." To which she replied, "It is because you're referencing it." The reason why that is so stupid is because by that standard, everything can be considered performance art. Imagine someone painted a beautiful portrait of you and your husband, and before it was handed to you, a lesser known, self-proclaimed artist came up and just drew a giant red cock right over the top of the canvas. Would you be enthralled by the grace and passion of their artistic expression? Or would you be irritated that a piece of art that you were just admiring was just ruined for no reason? Then imagine months, weeks, years later, when you tell someone that wasn't art, that was bullshit, someone goes, actually it was because you're still talking about it. Obviously, people wanted to hear from John Lennon, not Yoko Ono, the same way that people typically want to hear from iDubbbz, not Anisa. Anisa, if you can't see the problem with being so narcissistic and self-centered that you would actively ruin your husband's performance for attention, then there is no helping you. The amount of copium Anisa must have been huffing in order to write such an out-of-touch tweet is atrocious. If people liked Anisa more than iDubbbz, she would be seen as the matriarchal figure she so desperately wants to be. But her declaring herself such a thing, and then unironically comparing herself to the woman who is most hated and most credited for breaking up the Beatles, sums up perfectly everything wrong with her way of thinking. But on the very next installment of She Ruined My Career, as a good husband should, iDubbbz jumped to her defense, saying that her streams are great and that her fits on her streams aren't a problem because she'll only be pissing off a bunch of incels.
I think your stream can be fucking awesome.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, you have the personality for it. Like, you know, very charismatic.
That's so nice.
Very loud.
I am very loud, yeah.
Very active.
Well, I've already pissed off people.
Well, and even in this fucking podcast, right? Maybe this podcast will see growth because you're gonna fucking sploot all over the live stream. I don't know. I think it's good. I think the going off is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. Who are you gonna piss off other than like a bunch of incels? Like,
Yeah.
Why did he say it like that? He sounded like a Discord mod. Incels. It only pisses off a bunch of incels.
Incels.
Ian, I hate to break it to you, buddy, but not everyone who dislikes your wife is an incel, especially when she has such a long history of lying and being a hypocrite.
It's nice to know that the car can handle that kind of weight without denting. To our knowledge, it might have dented actually, who knows.
I really believe that anybody can be beautiful at any weight.
Granted, many of us have never met her, but we are allowed to make judgments on someone based off of what they themselves post online. But then only a few days later, we got the release of the newest Cold Ones episode featuring iDubbbz, and the response has been, well, to put it nicely, extremely negative. Oof, Max and Chad never carried an episode that hard before. That random DoorDash driver they had come on the episode was vibing better with them than their old friend. Holy moly. You guys are lucky he could fit you in between his wife's tattoo appointments. For those of you who don't know the context to that one, it is speculated that iDubbbz missed Max Mofo's wedding because of Anisa's tattoo appointments. This is how I imagine the back member of the Human Centipede would interact if they all had a reunion. It's so sweet of you two to invite your lesbian aunt onto the show. She didn't contribute much, but she seemed to enjoy watching you two have fun nonetheless. Yeah, so iDubbbz was seen kind of just standing around, not really saying much, not really doing much, and everyone kind of picked up on the sense that he didn't seem to even want to be there in the first place. This was supposed to be an iconic moment in YouTube history. I mean, this was the reunion of one of the most beloved groups on YouTube, and instead, this is what we got.
Salami.
You seen that TikTok? Salami lid?
No.
You go salami lid.
The container's too full of salami that it won't go on.
Yeah.
I think so.
Listen to this. Listen to this.
So basically, like, there's a container full of salami and the lid won't go on.
Well said. Well said.
Is that it? Wait.
Now this brings us to the most recent episode of She Ruined My Career, where Anisa and iDubbbz admit wrongdoing, not just in terms of their content, but also in the way that they have addressed their old fans.
And it seemed like there were a lot of people who are still to this day feeling bad that you gave them in some sort of indication or idea that they should feel bad for enjoying the content that you are disavowing, even though their intention when watching it and enjoying it, they feel wasn't bad. They were just enjoying a funny YouTube video, and I think that maybe they felt that you were making them feel bad for it.
Yeah.
Do you think do you think that's justified? Because I personally, from talking to you about it, I don't think that you believe that. I don't think that you think that people are bad people for enjoying a YouTube video if their intentions are...
No, I think, to be honest, it's just like, in my mind, it's just like really bad communication on my part. Because I started like doing things that I would say are like out of character for me, like me just going on the Anthony Padilla podcast. There was a line in there that sounded like really harsh, and it was like, yeah, when the basement dwelling person like comes out and sees their favorite YouTuber, they say a slur or something.
Because you were specifically talking about the fans that had come up to you and said a slur to you in public.
Yeah.
That's who you're specifically talking about. So when you say I was attracting basement dwellers, it makes a blanket statement that everyone who watches your stuff is a blanket or is a basement dweller, rather than you were attracting a lot of people, but with some of the stuff that you were doing, especially because there was satire and other things, you were also beaconing out to the basement dweller who comes out of their room once every month, who would say a slur to someone and think it's funny.
Yeah.
That's what there was the disconnect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not perfect, but it is better than what we've been hearing over the last 4 years. Now, surprisingly, I actually find myself agreeing with Anisa in a part of this podcast, where she says that the reason why iDubbbz moved away from his old fan base is because of the response to her announcing her OnlyFans.
My perspective, like watching it from the outside, I think what happened was you felt like the audience was like with you 100%, like they got it. And then I think I think this actually started during the OnlyFans thing, where you all of a sudden like saw that your audience was projecting a lot of things onto you, that you like had all these thoughts and feelings that you don't have. And I think it scared you of like, holy shit, these people don't know me at all.
Right.
And I think that you started to wrestle with the idea.
hesitation.
Well, you were like, well, I want to show people more who I am. And so you started doing kind of like more Ian content than iDubbbz content.
Now, one thing that she doesn't say that I firmly believe is that after that announcement, the only people that were really nice to her are people like Ethan Klein and Hassan Piker. which is why they began so heavily playing for that PC leftist audience. I think Ian was highly influenced not just by the response of Anisa's OF, but also the political and social climate of 2020. Anisa's OF dropped in March of 2020, and only a couple months later, we would see the largest wave of cancel culture maybe ever. And let's just say, Ian would have been a prime target. I actually don't believe that iDubbbz was grifting. I think really he was pushed and pulled into a new frame of mind by the resentment and frustration of his old fan base turning on him. Yet, while I believe all of this, I still find it hard to have sympathy for him. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Well, iDubbbz actively encouraged online bullying, and he developed an entire audience that agreed with him, saying that if you are going to be a bully online, you can do that, you just can't be a pussy too.
Straight off the bat, I want to let all the newcomers to my channel know that I'm perfectly fine with bullying. Make fun of someone because they're fat, autistic, or riddled with acne, I don't care. Make fun of them. I think my only stipulation with the bullying is that you also have to not be a pussy.
For the first time in Ian's YouTube career, he was essentially on the other end of a content cop, and bro cracked like an egg.
Yeah, I really appreciate everyone. You know, I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea.
I think the drama with the OF announcement would have gone away in enough time, because even though it did hurt iDubbbz's reputation, because most men don't really like the idea of their girlfriends doing that kind of work, the internet is an extremely fast-paced environment. Everyone would have moved on if Ian wasn't so hell-bent on giving all the haters more and more ammo to work with.
And I think that like comments were coming in and saying these things, and you felt like, you don't know what's right for my channel. You don't know what's right for me. And that's just you, period. Like, if I tell you to do something, you're going to be like, you don't know what's good for me. I'm going to do the opposite thing. And I think that that is what has happened between you and, like, your viewers. It's like your viewers are like, well, just stop doing this. And then it's almost like you're like, I'm going to do more of this. To the point where...
To be honest, I want to like iDubbbz again. And he doesn't even need to start spouting off the N-word in order for that to happen. He just needs to start making better content and not be easily swayed by haters on either side. Doing the opposite of what someone asks you to do, simply out of defiance, is actually giving just as much control over your life to that person as always doing what they ask you to do because you're like a pushover. But I guess that's all I got for this video. Really quickly, I just want to say thank you again for the tremendous support on my last video. I did not expect it. I really appreciate it. Drop a like on this video if you agreed and you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.